All right. It's finally time to do this. So Kingdom Hearts 3 has been out for like a month and a half as I'm recording this, and everyone's got their reviews up, at least a crap ton of people, and better late than never. I wanted to make sure I give you guys my thoughts on the game as a whole. This is not my spoiler talk. I have a spoiler talk video about like story details. You can go watch that if you haven't yet. And in this video, there will be mild spoilers, maybe, just maybe, but mostly this is gonna be pretty spoiler free because I just want to talk about the game itself. The game isn't just story. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a title in gaming history that is almost a joke at this point, not because of the game itself, but its anticipation of being a release. The second one was all the way back in 2005 as a numbered sequel, and ever since there's been spin-off titles, and the last real continuation of the story with the full game was in 2012, I think. I'm gonna address a good amount of thoughts that I have for this game in this video, but it's gonna be through the community. I've asked you guys a few questions that you'd like my take on for this game, and we're gonna show those, and I'm gonna go over them. Not every question is gonna be addressed in here. I got a good handful of them. All the questions will be answered though in a free Patreon podcast. There's no paywall behind it, so I'll have a link to that as well in the cards above. So if your question didn't make it in this video, make sure you visit that. I'm guessing most of the people watching this video has already played the game or is a fan of the series, but just in case you are a new person and just want to know the setup here, the nutshell, it's the battle between light and darkness, good and evil. That's a super duper nutshell. There's a lot of other stuff going on. This game is honestly very comparable to Infinity War in the aspect that there's a lot of other movies surrounding just Avengers 1 and 2, and Kingdom Hearts, it's very similar. There's a lot of games surrounding Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. And that segues into the first question very well.
Don't you think that some of the recapping of the story was just a bit unnecessary?
I personally found the recaps for this game really nicely done. Yes, sometimes in the game it does feel a little bit forced on you with the amount of dialogue that's given to recap, but I actually liked that. I liked, not necessarily in the game, but I liked beforehand. There's the memory archives showing like a summary of the bad guys, the first game, and so much other stuff. There's a menu trailer that shows visually past events, and then the opening cinematic kind of shows it all too. The game does a somewhat really good job of trying to catch people up, you know, that have only played the second game, like ever since the second game. Which is, they're still gonna be lost going into this, but I like that they put an effort into really catching people up. I personally like that. But of course, the game will have a much bigger payoff for the fans that have stuck with it throughout and have played all the games, or at least watched all the games, gotten attached to and get to know the characters and stuff. It'll definitely pay off a lot more for them, just like that comparison to Avengers Infinity War. You know, you'll understand maybe the plot of what's going on, but you won't really be attached to all the people there. Very similar scenario. Mr. Nato, one of my lovely patron Kingdom Hearts fans, he asked,
I would love to know what you thought of Sora's character development from Kingdom Hearts 1 to 3.
So Sora's the main character of this franchise, at least the numbered sequels, as well as Dream Drop Distance, I guess. And he has always been a shining light to go on these Disney adventures. He's just got that attitude that works, and in this game, I actually really like Sora's personality. He has gone back to being that lovable protagonist that he was in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. He's not dumbed down like he was in Dream Drop. Yes, he is simple-minded, but he's not stupid, and I really appreciated that. And he has grown somewhat in this game, don't get me wrong, but to me, Sora's character development hasn't always been the strongest, and that is as well in this game. Sora, more as a character to me, is compelling on how he affects the world around him, how he affects the characters around him. But what was really cool in this game is to see his spirit really get tested in the last act, because there's a lot of emotional stuff that happens in the last act. So it was cool to see this new face of Sora in the last act that we haven't really seen in the other games, at least not enough of, or as emotionally heavy in my opinion. I don't have too much to say about his character development, but I just want to say Sora in this game, like, thumbs up. And this one's gonna probably be the longest answer I give in this whole video.
What did you think about the gameplay?
This game is freaking gorgeous. I just gotta say that. I know we could have got it sooner if they didn't switch to the Unreal 4 engine, but damn is that engine worth it. It looks so beautiful sometimes. A lot of the times. Maybe all the time. I'll get to the Disney Worlds in a moment, but they look so gorgeous in this. It's amazing how good this game looks. Like, honestly. And there's even a mixture of some CGI scenes that really show off some, you know, pre-rendered cutscenes, yes, but they look great too. And it's a awesome to see how many of them got mixed into the main game. Not to mention the designs of the Heartless in this game are so cool. That's always been something about the Kingdom Hearts franchise that has always grabbed me personally, is the designs of a lot of the things in here, and Nomura and his team did such a good job of making some really interesting looking Heartless that they just look so cool. Combat in this game, oh my god. The amount of options that you have is crazy. It's sometimes overwhelming, honestly. Eventually you get used to it, but it actually requires a lot of experimentation to really figure it out. The development team did such a good job of integrating everything, nearly everything really, that the franchise has done. You have flow motion, you have summons, you have magic, you have keyblades, you just shot locks, you could literally just everything. To me though, my personal favorite thing about the game is being able to switch keyblades on the fly, and that makes for so many various combinations of options, like switching to your keyblade when you have a lot of magic, and then once you run out of magic, you might want to switch to a keyblade that's a lot better for strength reasons because you can't use magic. It's cool the amount of options that you have thanks to that, and also you're able to upgrade the keyblades, and they aren't necessarily super bad either. I love that you don't have to recycle or throw away keyblades as you progress in the game. That's always been a problem with the Kingdom Hearts franchise, and that is a massive improvement on it. And magic has never been freaking funner. Magic in this game is so flashy, it is so cool, and it functions a lot better too. It homes a lot better, it locks on a lot better, it works better, and it's really flashy too, because once you do enough moves, you get these things called situation commands, and these situation commands look bedazzlingly gorgeous once you get to like the max level of spells in the game. Oh, magic was so cool in this. And they added a new spell for water, and I particularly really like the spell for arrow now. Instead of it being a defensive spell, it's more of an offensive thing, because in this game, you don't really need defense. Do you feel the series has gotten easier over time, or that Kingdom Hearts 3 was just easy? Because of all the options I just said, yes, the game is definitely easier than most of the games, maybe the easiest in the franchise. It's got its challenging moments. I think people are blowing this a little bit out of proportion, but yes, once you get to a certain point in the game, Sora is incredibly overpowered with the amount of options that he has. That issue is definitely there. That's one of the universal issues that I hear about this game, is that it's too easy. And it also reminded me of one of the key reasons why I still love Kingdom Hearts 1's combat to this day, is that it's the most strategic of the bunch. You don't have all these super flashy moves. The magic bar doesn't recharge either, so you have to be it's just a lot more strategic of a combat system. Whereas in future games, yes, Sora and other characters get a lot more flashy moves, but I think they did a good job of adding difficulty to each of the games and making sure you didn't feel too overpowered. Yes, if you maxed out your stats, of course, you could be. But the games did a good job having things like critical mode, secret bosses that would really challenge you even if you were maxed out. Kingdom Hearts 3 just doesn't have those things. So yes, I think it is just Kingdom Hearts 3, in my opinion.
What was your favorite world and why?
Top of my head, I'll probably say the Caribbean, Port Royale. I definitely was really impressed with that map. But this will probably become its own video in the future, so make sure, bell, subscribe, whatever, like that. This will probably become a video in the future. But I want to use this question to really have an opportunity to gush about the Disney worlds, because honestly, that's the thing that I talked about most when I was first playing this game. The size of these worlds and how different they feel is so impressive to me. I love that in the Monsters Inc. one, you know, you ride on the doors and feel like you're in a factory. Pirates of the Caribbean, you're sailing on the 7 seas as a pirate. And Frozen, you're scaling your way through this snowy map and it has like snowballs you could roll on. Each of the maps feels super different in ways that really add a sense of variety to the game, and that's a really good thing. Not to mention the voice acting from these worlds, like the Disney worlds, oh my gosh, they are actually the best, in my opinion, that the Kingdom Hearts franchise has done. Mike and Sully are spot on. They sound spot on like Billy Crystal and John Goodman. Toy Story and Monsters Inc. are like the peak of the story of the Disney worlds in this game. There's a couple worlds that had original stories. Those were the best, in my opinion, and the ones that didn't have original stories, Sora, Donald, and Goofy do feel pretty shoehorned in, but that didn't affect really my enjoyment of the worlds themselves. I love revisiting these places and how each of them feel different. They're awesome. They did an amazing job with the worlds, for the most part. My only gripe with these worlds is that you get a map for each of them eventually, but the map doesn't do anything. You wish you knew what direction you're going and what's around you. I don't know. Like, with the maps being as expansive as they are, I've never felt the need for maps in previous Kingdom Hearts games. But this one, because the maps are so expansive and big, the maps would have been a lot more useful. Other than that, freaking Disney Worlds are amazing.
What did you think of the boss fights?
Some I loved and some I was just okay with. There's some bosses that just, their health bar is so high and the fight is just very repetitive instead of being entertaining. And those are the only bosses I had a problem with. An issue I had with most of them kind of goes back to that difficulty thing, being that I hardly ever died on them, really. And when a boss isn't challenging, then it kind of takes away the pride of, you know, beating it and overcoming it. So there's that. But I love the designs of some of them in the Disney Worlds in specific, you know, like the Heartless designs for some of them. They look so cool. The Frozen one in particular with the wolf, that's probably my favorite design of a boss in this game when it comes to like the Heartless. And I love that some of the maps just change the scale. Like they transform into a different place, which 0.2 gave us a glimpse of. And I love that they continue that trend. But I just love that idea that you get transported to this other arena, and the Toy Story one in particular, where blocks are flying all over the place. Oh, that was so cool. Honestly, the final bosses that you fight through the final act of the game, they were freaking badass. It easily has my favorite boss fight in the entire game towards like the, I think it's like the second to last boss you fight in this game. Dude, that shit was fire. And not to mention the final boss, like that, it was awesome.
Do you feel as if the Kingdom Hearts story and the Disney story had a good balance throughout the entire game?
Simple answer to this question, no, I don't think there was a good balance, and that's just me. If you feel different, let me know in the comments, it's fine. But just me personally, there wasn't a good balance. One of the key reasons for this is that Sora feels like on a very isolated quest throughout this whole game. It doesn't feel like he is as involved in the plot as he was in previous games, and that's super important for your protagonist to feel like, to be involved in changing the world as you go through the game. But he more so was just doing that in these isolated Disney worlds instead of like dealing with the organization on the go, or, you know, he just wasn't affecting much of the world around him as the other games, and that was really disappointing. The Disney worlds just served to basically make him stronger, because at the start of this game, Sora doesn't have any power, or not many of his powers, so that's really all the Disney worlds function to be, it's just training. But when the last act hits, oh, it's too much. It's too much good story stuff, nothing but plot, hardcore moments, lots of emotions and craziness that goes down. The last act of this game is 5 to 7 hours of intense emotional conclusions that is just awesome. It was awesome, and I just wish that we got some sprinkles of that throughout the main story for them to be part of the journey. And again, I have a spoiler talk about this, so again, I'll refer you to that if you want more details on all that. But speaking of this topic, I'll briefly touch upon it.
Do you feel that Kingdom Hearts 3 provided a satisfying conclusion to the Xehanort saga, including all the character arcs built up this far?
It was an incredibly daunting task to try to wrap up so many stories that has been built up ever since Kingdom Hearts 2, honestly. All these side titles that they've released. There's a lot of stuff to address in this game. And granted, most of it gets addressed in the last act and just little teases of it during the journey, but nonetheless, they did add a very solid conclusion to everything. Literally, nearly everything, like 98%, at least in my opinion. There's some things brought up within the game, yes, and there's some things that didn't get tidied up, but honestly, for the main characters that we've been introduced to the past few years, oh yeah, I definitely would say they wrapped it up very well. Now, there's a few notes briefly that I wanted to mention that nobody asked about, but just a couple points that I just want to bring up before we start getting to the final questions. This game had some honestly really good comedy in it. Like the best comedy that's been in the entire franchise, in my opinion. It's very self-aware a lot of the times, nearly fourth wall breaking at times too, but not to mention there's Disney characters that actually, mostly in the Pixar worlds, but there's moments where they actually get to interact with the, you know, the plot villains and stuff like that. I don't know, just comedy in this game was really on point. The best comedy that's been in the franchise, in my opinion. And I wasn't expecting that. That was a neat little element that I just was not expecting, so that was a neat bonus.
Were you happy with the music from Yoko?
As the game went on, yes. I was a little bit worried because there was a lot of recycled themes as I was going through like the beginning of the game. There's a few new themes, don't get me wrong, but nothing was really blowing me away. But as I started to play through the game, I was just like, okay, this is great. The music of this game's great. The Disney world's got such a nice charm to them that really pays respect to their properties while also keeping it somewhat original. And the last act of this game has some fantastic tracks, like seriously. Our new cloudy world that we saw in one of the trailers, yeah, that world, I got chills when I first heard that track. There is a large variety of things to do in this game if you want to get to 100%. Like finding ingredients with Remy, the gummy ship stuff, we will get into that, boy. The Classic Kingdom mini games, treasures to find, taking pictures of yourself, your teammates, and lucky emblems, the other mini games, synthesis. There is a lot of stuff, and it's fun, and it's cool that there's a variety of them too. That's the cool thing about them, is that because there's such a variety of things to be a completionist in this game, it's nice, you know, bouncing around between them, as well as in the worlds too. The worlds, like I said earlier, feel super different, and that's a good thing for, you know, a variety and not repetitiveness. However, it starts to feel a little bit empty after a while because, you know, the whole no difficulty issue, and these acts are fun, they just don't seem as rewarding as they could be. The stuff's fun, I just wish that they added more reason and depth on doing them. So one of the last couple questions here comes from Lindsay Frelay. Yeah.
What was an aspect about the game you liked a lot of people maybe didn't like?
There are a ton of things that got vamped in this game, don't get me wrong, but easily the number one thing that like blew me away in its sheer, like I was not expecting it to be this crazy is the gummy ship stuff. You literally are just in an open space, like an open world gummy ship game, and that's so freaking cool. You fly up to the worlds, and the worlds are actually a world that feels like it's a three-dimensional thing instead of just being a floating symbol, you know, for the place that you're going to. There's asteroids to destroy that you can mine for materials. There's treasures to find. There's bosses to find. There's hordes to find. There's so much shit in this place. Not to mention you can customize gummy ships super freaking crazy now by having all these different textures applied to them. Oh my gosh, this is the game that Star Fox fans really deserve, so I made an R-Wing.
How do you rank this game in the Kingdom Hearts franchise?
I really wanted this to rise up and become my favorite Kingdom Hearts game, and it's not a bad thing that it didn't. It didn't do that, but I still loved it for all the various reasons that I've said previously. To answer the question though, if you ask me like where I would put it, I think ironically Kingdom Hearts 3 is my third favorite in the franchise, just barely under Kingdom Hearts 1, and then Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix is still at the top. Kingdom Hearts 2 Final Mix specifically just exceeded in every way possible that I could ever have imagined, and Kingdom Hearts 3 just did that in a few ways, just a couple ways really. And the final question, and again, if your question did get addressed in this, there's a link to the free podcast that you can listen to where I address the rest of the questions. The last question comes from Maruzu Kage, who's a beautiful patron as well. He's got a channel too, you should check him out. Was Kingdom Hearts 3 all that you ever hoped it would be, or does some part of you feel dissatisfied with the game? Hoped it would be? No. Satisfied? Yes. There's just no way that this game would ever live up to, you know, the wait that we've had for it. Just in my opinion, there was no way. That doesn't mean it'll be a bad game though. I'm just saying, like, when something has such a long wait like that, you have so many dreams and expectations put on it that just, it's gonna be hard to fulfill that. That isn't a bad thing though. Like, yes, I had hope for a few things for this game that didn't come true, like Final Fantasy characters in the slightest. Olympus Coliseum, dude. That's probably the hardest hit on me. I really wanted Olympus Coliseum. A crazy amount of worlds to explore. Music that'd blow me away instead of just make me happy. And an adventure with the largest scope feeling yet to it. And even though I didn't get those things, I also got things I didn't expect, like amazing voice acting from Disney worlds, as well as huge scope expansiveness, whatever, of all these Disney worlds. For the most part. Sora, Dawn, and Goofy having the best chemistry they've ever had. Keyblades never feeling like they get thrown away. Incredibly great graphics. The gummy ship stuff! An incredibly action-packed finale and conclusion to so many things set up. Kingdom Hearts 3 overall is a great sequel that culminates basically everything that's come before it, both story and gameplay wise. Kingdom Hearts 3 was my most anticipated release of all time, like of anything, and while it wasn't the mind-blowing spectacle that I wanted it to be, it still impressed me in many ways as a gamer. I'm gonna give Kingdom Hearts 3 a B+. Of course, I want to know what you thought of it in the comments below. I'd like you to like maybe bring up things that I didn't bring up or that you'd like to know my thoughts on, and I'll talk about it. I'd love to chit chat with you guys down there. And just a reminder, there should be a card popping up or in the description, the podcast of other questions that I didn't get to in this video. And of course, there's links down below to my spoiler talk video, as well as something else you might like. And stay tuned, because I really do think I want to make this Disney World video, like ranking the Disney worlds. There's stuff to stay tuned for, so make sure you're subscribed, bell icon. So check out one of those videos. I'll wait. Go ahead and check that out. Anyways, yeah.